once again, a very warm welcome to all of our attendees. To start off with is obviously the tips to continually prevent COVID-19. And as we have been saying, it's not just to prevent COVID-19. In fact, health and safety is also about health. And so hygiene and housekeeping goes a very long way to ensure that we prevent all types of illnesses. Washing your hands regularly. When there is no soap or water available, it's good to keep an alcohol-based hand sanitizer available. If you haven't washed your hands, do not touch your eyes, nose, and mouth. And where you can currently, under the regulations for COVID-19, please adhere to social distancing measures and also avoid close contact with people who are sick. Then if you are going to cough or sneeze, please cover your cough or sneeze with a flexed elbow or tissue and throw the tissue into the bin. Lastly, clean and disinfect frequently touched objects and surfaces. Again, very good advice for any hygiene practices. Now, if you can, currently, we are being encouraged to get vaccinated and do your part to prevent COVID-19. So this morning, we are taking a look at slipping and tripping hazards. What could cause slipping and tripping? What are the areas that we are discussing? And what should we do practically to stop these types of incidents and accidents from occurring on a day-to-day basis? Well, coming up for this month, we just want to remind you of the IOPSA Toolbox Talks happening every Tuesday morning. Today, we will look at slip and trip. Next week, we'll look at caught between hazards. So what in our environment as plumbers are we going to be caught between and have injuries or hazards arise from that? And then lifting and lowering. This would be both with physical, just using your body, or lifting and lowering with automated means. So perhaps like a lift truck, or perhaps if we are going to be using some sort of rigging and slinging, what are the risks and hazards there? Please remember, at any given time, you are always welcome to reach out to us at OHS Consulting. Now, we know that last week a lot of emails came through. We really appreciate it. In fact, last week we had so many emails through info@OHSS that the server actually just stopped working. It pretty much crashed because of all the information that came through for the prime course. So we want to say thank you very much. If we didn't get back to you yet, it is Tuesday morning and we did sift through all of the emails yesterday, and we will be getting back to you during the course of today and tomorrow. So we do apologize if we haven't gotten back to you yet, but please note that you are on our list of those who we are going to get back to in the next day or two. We want to remind you that if you are a SIOSH member, you can claim your 1 CPD point from SIOSH for these Toolbox Talks, as well as a 0.25 PRB CPD points from the Plumbing Industry Registration Board. Now, we also want to remind you to please send us information, what you enjoy, what you don't enjoy, or anything that you want to hear coming up on these Toolbox Talks. But let's get straight into our Toolbox Talk for this morning, or for this week rather. Slipping and tripping is a hazard. Now, the most common occurrences of slips and trips are caused due to poor lighting on site, trailing cables, unsuitable floor coverings, uneven or damaged floor surfaces, contaminated floor surfaces, for example, liquid or grease, and then poor housekeeping. For example, tripping or falling over something left in a walkway. Now, if you take a look on the left-hand side photo, you will then clearly see a site where contractors are working. You have electrical contractors working. You've got groundworks. You've got painting. You've got ceilings. You've got all different types of contractors working in this environment. And as plumbers, we are not immune to such sites. In fact, often we get to a site and we notice that the tools are pretty much all over the place. Even though we are only working in one section of the area, all the tools that we need for the entire project are out, not just for that specific task. And we do appreciate that when we get to site, things change. Perhaps we started on a certain specific task, and then we were told to stop that task because of changes. Maybe other contractors needed to finish their work first. There's so many things that could happen on a site that would distract us from what we normally do or stop us from doing what we needed to do for that day. We do appreciate this, and we do understand the frustration that you go on on a day-to-day basis, not just in construction sites, but on many other projects as well, where constant changes, constant movements, or even just the environment that you're working in is not conducive to health and safety. However, we must make decisive actions before starting to work. We cannot allow the working environment around us to be seen like this. Now, you'll notice that you don't see any people in this picture on the left-hand side. And that is because this is now during the lunchtime period. And so it is left like this until they return from eating their lunch. Now, you can imagine that some contractors take lunchtime at different periods. So not everybody's going to take a 12 o'clock or a 1 o'clock lunchtime. And so other contractors might be moving in and around the site in order to get to their scope of work, and they need to go through this area. This is where slipping and tripping hazards will continually occur. So with the most common occurrences caused by certain things, it's then very easy to see how we can prevent this from happening. Adequate lighting, no trailing cables, suitable floor coverings, no uneven or damaged floor surfaces, cleaning up any grease or liquid or any contaminants that are on the floor surfaces, and having good housekeeping. For example, we don't want to fall over anything because there is nothing left in the walkway. So it's very simple. If we see something that is causing the hazard, we need to try and eliminate that. If we cannot eliminate it, how can we make it safer? For instance, in this picture, we notice that the poor lighting is caused due to the current installation of lighting that is happening at the moment. We can see some lighting that is going in and some areas of light which do not have light bulbs in as yet. So you might think, well, we will get adequate lighting once the electrician has finished his scope of work. But that's not really eliminating poor lighting, is it? What we do need to do is get temporary lighting in there. And temporary lighting will help us to remove or eliminate that risk, poor lighting. Trailing cables. Is there an area where trailing cables can be designated, perhaps even stuck down onto the ground temporarily so that slipping and tripping cannot occur? You see, a little bit of thought, a little bit of preparation will go a long way in preventing these types of risks. What about fire? Is the site that you work on a fire hazard? Because the likelihood of fire on a site is increased if there is rubbish strewn about. If we just throw rubbish anywhere, we leave it lying around and think to ourselves, well, we will clean it later. Now, you might be saying to me, yes, Chris, but you can't clean every 5 minutes. I appreciate that as well. And there are areas where sometimes you're going to have a bit of a mess around you until the job is completed. However, we need to take a look at how we are doing this, because there are some times where it is acceptable and some times where it is not acceptable. And that is because working in this environment, as you can see here, it is unacceptable because there is so much happening in this picture that there are too many scopes of work actually there, too many tasks happening at the same time. And once one task is finished, it is not being cleaned up after that task. And so it is very important then for us to stop and reevaluate what is supposed to be done. Where is the actual task supposed to be? Where is the housekeeping issue? And can you take 5 minutes to first clean it up? Now, looking at this picture again, I'd like to ask anyone in the audience, and you don't have to answer me, you can just answer it yourself. How long would it actually take you to clean this? To get rid of anything that doesn't need to be there, get rid of the rubbish, to be able to pack the tools in a neat area, to get rid of old cartridges, to be able to sweep it up. Will it take 3 days? Maybe an entire day? Well, if you're like me and you're thinking practically, it won't even take you more than 10 to 15 minutes to clean up this little section. Then we know that we have a clean working environment. Now, Keeping access routes, especially fire escape routes, clear of debris and materials like the ladder, which is the access route for this roof, is going to go a long way in preventing falling off the roof, slipping or dropping tools from this roof. Now you might say, well, we don't work like this. We plumbers, that's the roofing team, that's the cladding team, that's the electrical team. But actually there is a plumber on this roof. And that plumber is putting in the solar geysers, the solar panels for this roof. Now you might be saying, well, I don't work like that in any case. Good. We don't want you to work in an environment that can create risks and hazards to the people that you work with or even the people that you work around. And especially don't we want to create a fire risk while working on site. So please do not leave items lying around on the working site. Now let's take a look at some electrical hazards that you might have seen yourself as well. Perhaps working in an environment on a site where there aren't enough services to go around, then everyone needs to get their piece of electricity, especially with load shedding happening at all different times. Nobody knows when they are going to be able to finish their project. And so if you haven't brought a generator to site, maybe you haven't brought one because the safety officer is giving you so much extra work to do now that you have a generator on site. Because now you have to have bund walls, or you have to have spill bins, you have to have spill kits, you need to have hazardous chemical substance handling because of the diesel or petrol you're bringing to site. Now there's so much extra added that you think, instead of doing that, I will just use the electricity on site. And everyone has the same thought. Now you have overloading sockets, trailing cables all over the place. The risks are very real in this type of scenario. So we need to make sure all electrical power tools are kept neat, kept safe. We need to protect ourselves from electric shock. So if we cannot do that, we are setting ourselves up for huge dangers. We never ever want to cut off the ground plug on any 3-prong plugs. We always want to check electrical cords for any damage. And this is not just once a week or once a month when you're doing your tool registers and checklists. We want to remind every single individual listening to this Toolbox Talk that as soon as you pick up a tool or start operating a tool, you should do a visual inspection. Never use a damaged tool. Cables should not be placed across walkways. So if there is an area that you need to walk through or someone else needs to walk through, never place any cables through that area. And if you have to put it there, remember, we don't just want to have a sign, we want to include any method to make it safer, such as taping it down so that it's not loose on the ground. Electric cables then should be taped down to prevent others from slipping as well. And then when working with power tools and cables, make sure that you do at least put signage to warn someone should they come through. Now you can notice that not one of these things is needed. In fact, all of these things are really needed. We want to do everything possible to keep ourselves safe, to keep those working around us safe, and to ensure our site does not cause slipping and tripping hazards all the time. So a question to all of you plumbers out there. How are you representing yourself and your company? Is your site clean? Have you organized a cleanup program? Do you have regular programs, regular areas within the day to constantly clean up, to remove trash, broken parts, scrap from working areas, making sure that the walkways, storerooms, or all areas within your working environment have been kept clean? Remember, you are also there representing your employer. If you're the employer on site, you are representing your very company name. So look out for materials that have been stacked improperly. An unstable stack is a real danger to anyone who might be near it. It is also a danger to these stacked items, because stacked items that fall over could become damaged, and then you cannot install these. Check things such as wooden pallets, dock freight, storeroom boxes, construction materials, even office files, to see that everything is stacked and stored properly. All of these areas could be a concern and could be a real risk to any person, not just yourself or to your employees, but even a visitor, a client, a customer of yours that might be in the vicinity. We never want to have any area of concern or possibility that poor housekeeping or neglect of a clean site will cause issues while we are there. Currently, we also want to take a look at some specific requirements that we need to have to keep a clean site. Neat work really goes a long way in showing people that you have a good desire toward health and safety. And not just that, your quality of work really is set aside or set apart from others in the industry. And we want all IOPSA members to be set apart. We want you to work clean. We want the workplace to be clean. And so some of the requirements is that a minimum of 600 millimeters is required on all working platforms. Wherever you are walking or working, you need at least 600 millimeters of required space that is unobstructed at all times. And so you don't need to go around measuring with a tape, but really what you want is two people to be able to walk past each other down any aisle, walkway, or area where you are walking on a platform. This means that you would want to pack or store any tools or equipment that you're using or installing in a neat environment. Yes, we want to make sure that it's not going to cause a potential hazard. You want to keep cables, hoses away from these walkways. Then start with a clean site. If you arrive on site and you realize that the area where you are working is untidy, don't blame the contractor before you. Don't say it's not my responsibility. Clean it up. Start with a clean site and then end with a clean site. Yes, it's very easy to leave it for somebody else to clean. In fact, it's also very easy to say it's not my responsibility. But really, what standard are you setting? Are you really going to haggle over whose responsibility it is and then work in an unsafe environment? Or are you going to take charge of your own safety on site and start safe, work safe, and finish safe? Ensure that you always have adequate lighting to be able to see the area where you are working, and ensure that you have proper maintenance schedules. Proper maintenance schedules will ensure that the tools and equipment you are using will never be unsafe for you to use. So what are we really saying when it comes to risks and hazards of slipping and tripping on site, poor housekeeping, or anything that could be unsafe while working on site? Well, what we are saying is make safety personal. Make safety personal to yourself. Don't ever feel that it's not your responsibility. You should be able to clean up after yourself or even others for that matter. Use the right tools and make sure you wear the right type of personal protective equipment. Each person is actually responsible to ensure that their work area place is clean at the end of each shift or the end of each day. Now, if you have a problem in keeping your area tidy, why not ask your supervisor or your safety representative for assistance? And when I say assistance, I'm not saying tell them to clean it up, but perhaps the work that you are doing is not allowing enough time for housekeeping. And so a routine needs to be made for housekeeping. In fact, housekeeping should be part and parcel of the task that you perform. Remember, every single person has a responsibility towards safety. And this means that every single person has a responsibility toward a clean site. But it starts with me. It starts with the person doing the work. We never want to point a finger at someone else and say they are responsible for keeping my work environment safe. We never want to point a finger at the employer. Yes, they are ultimately responsible for anything that happens in the company, but you are also responsible for your own health and safety. In fact, Section 14 of the law says that you are responsible for your health and safety, as well as the health and safety of any person who might be affected by what you do. So again, make it personal. Start with a safe, clean working environment. Prevent those slips and trips from happening before they happen. So we want to say thank you very much for joining us this morning for the Slip and Trip Toolbox Talk. We've left it a little bit short this morning, purely because we want to tell you a little bit more about Prime. Now, IOPSA has proudly brought Prime, or the Plumbing Risk and Incident Management Education course, to you. For many of you who have already registered, we want to say thank you very much. The registration process takes about 2 weeks. And this is because you have to write a motivational letter telling us at Occupational Health and Safety Services why you want to actually enter into this course. Now, why do you have to do this? If it's a free course from our OPSA, why are we asking you to write a motivational letter? Well, that is because of the cost behind this course. You see, the entire course costs about 15,000 Rand, and IOPSA is wanting to give it to you, its members, for free. But in order to give you that value, we need to see that you actually value it. And so when you fill in this registration process and the letter that follows, we really want to see that you want this course. You value health and safety. And the mentorship program that goes with it will be tailor-made to what you tell us in that mentorship or in that commitment letter. Now, what we do want to remind you of is every single application is going to be dealt with individually. And that is, I myself personally am reading every single motivational letter that is sent through to us. And so that application that you submit comes through to myself first. I read through it, and then I tailor-make a certain program for you. You will be fitted into a specific category. That category tells me what mentorship areas you will specifically need during the next 12 months. And as you go through the various courses, from basic Occupational Health and Safety Act through to legal liabilities, the implementation of SHE representatives, risk assessments, planned task observations, daily safe task instructions, all the way through to incident and accident management, emergency preparation, and finally finishing on the occupational health and safety management system that is being designed for plumbers. We want to take you through a step-by-step procedure of implementing it in the right way. This is a journey that we are committed to walking with you on, but we want to see that commitment from you as well. And so when we get motivational letters that say, I need to do this course because I want to, that will not fly. We will not be sending you that course because we want to see your commitment. We want to see that we can and will be able to mentor you in the next coming months to be able to achieve a compliant system, to be able to help you reach the goals of health and safety compliance, and then get rid of any negative or bad behaviors within a company by implementing a fully systematic, controlled safety management system. This, again, is a commitment that we have toward you, our member plumbers. So please, when writing or filling in that document to tell us what motivation you have to do this course, tell us exactly, give us as much as possible to work with. We really do want to assist you, and we want to see you succeed by the end of this year. So again, if you haven't had the opportunity to get the information for this Prime course, to see the value that is behind the Prime course, let us know. Get in touch, safety@iopsa.org, info@ohss.co.za, or send me a WhatsApp on my personal number, 0718752070. We look forward to hearing from you and also walking with you on this next health and safety journey. So we want to say thank you very much for joining us again this morning. We're looking forward to Caught Between Risks and Hazards next week, Tuesday, and then finishing up the month on lifting and lowering. Remember the safety thought for this week. A spill, a slip equals a hospital trip. We want to eliminate slipping and tripping hazards. So we're going to say thank you very much for joining us this morning. To all of our members, We really appreciate you. We appreciate what you're trying to achieve, and we are dedicated to assisting you with health and safety.